A gray whale shoots 30 feet out of the water to the height of a 3-story building. The flukes whipping up the sea are 13 feet wide. This film introduces you to one of the most remarkable mammals on Earth, the Pacific gray whale. Grays migrate yearly 12 to 14,000 miles. They live in 2 totally different worlds, here in the southern warm lagoons of Baja California and in the northern icy seas of the Arctic. They are one of the most intelligent animals on Earth, and yet they've been on the verge of extinction 3 times in the last 100 years. In California, whale watching has become a multi-million-dollar industry. One that not only brings dollars into the local economy, but also brings whales into the public eye. Visitors come from all over the world to San Diego's Park Service Observatory, hoping to catch a glimpse of these majestic creatures. Twice a year, as these huge creatures migrate by this spot, the whales present a spectacular show. Although they've been traveling this route for thousands of centuries, only recently have they been studied by scientists. One of the earliest gray whale observers is Professor Theodore Walker, who founded the first West Coast Observatory here at Cabrillo National Monument. For most of his life, he's been investigating gray whale behavior and leading whale watching expeditions.
It's terribly exciting for me after 20 years of whale watching here and out at sea to find that gray whale watching is now a much more lucrative business for mankind in a dollars and cents business than it was when they were killing the whale. The gray whales have been taken here back in the 1850, 1870, 1890, and since 1951 there's been a whale observatory which I was instrumental in getting started. In the gray whale primer, I've had the artist sketch the whales to scale, and the gray whale sits in about the middle range of the larger whale species, which include the blue, the fin, which all are similar in carrying filters, and they all do filter their food, principally shrimp. On the other side, we have the toothed whales. Toothed whales start out with the largest being the sperm whale, and then the bottle-nosed whales are in here, but by and large, the majority of the small whale species are dolphins and porpoise, and they all feed either on squid or fish.
Grays navigate across trackless ocean, south from October to January, and north from January to June. These beauties were on the verge of extinction just 45 years ago. Thanks to an international protective agreement, researchers estimate that today, the population of gray whales is equivalent to what it was during pre-whaling times, at least 15,000 animals. Where once whaling captains set out to sea, now fleets of tourist boats wait to take whale watchers on a unique adventure. Costs range from a brief 3-hour trip for $10 to a 10-day trip for over $1,000. Included in this one is the extraordinary opportunity of being able to touch your own whale. These 45-foot, 35-ton whales dwarf the whale watchers and their boats. 35 tons is roughly equivalent to 10 good-sized elephants. San Ignacio Lagoon is famous for its friendly whales. They seem to be attracted by the boat and the sound of the idling engine. Their natural curiosity draws them close. A single blow from a wayward fluke could sink this boat and everyone in it in a flash. Whales are naturally inquisitive about everything. And since fear of humans is not an instinct, but a learned response, hopefully this generation of whales may never know the terror of their ancestors. Professor Walker is leading this group of whale enthusiasts to one of the secluded lagoons where he has studied gray whales for many years. As they return every year to the same breeding grounds, Professor Walker knows just where to find them. Every time a whale exhales, he releases roughly 250 gallons of air from his double blowholes, enough to fill 5 oil drums. It's taken centuries for people to respect the gentle nature of these animals. The gray whale has been so named because its black skin is mottled with gray and white spots. Parasites leave countless light-colored scars, especially on its head. Their elastic skin is cold to the touch, but is insulated from their internal organs by nature's best insulator, blubber, which can be up to 6 inches deep. Although whales are warm-blooded animals, their circulatory systems have become especially adapted to their extremely cold environment. The arteries and veins are uniquely positioned close together, so that the blood from the surface is warmed before it returns to the heart. Much to the surprise of the whale watchers, the skin surface of this gigantic animal is soft, smooth, and supple, almost like silk. The flexibility of the skin and blubber helps to reduce water turbulence and friction, so the animal moves efficiently and easily underwater. Whales seek out bodily contact by rubbing against each other. It's a good way to try to remove lice and barnacles. They seem to appreciate any additional scrubbing they can get. Because grays are a relatively slow-moving whale, they make a perfect home for barnacles. The barnacles, especially adapted to this habitat, are crustaceans who live in shells on the surface of the whale. Reddish whale lice live nestled in between them.
Well, as you can see, we've had a great show here with a friendly whale, and I'd always like to tell you that I'm not convinced they're friendly. You may wonder why when, after all, the whales are right alongside. The answer is a very simple one. I think the whale requires us to, as a rubbing post, that by rubbing itself, it keeps itself free of barnacle, and the barnacle is, at this point in time, releasing young into the water, which are immediately attaching to the whale. And as they attach, they drill holes. It hurts the whale, and of course they're out of harm the minute they get the hole dug.
It is almost impossible for the whale to remove a barnacle without breaking its protective shell. The serrated ring becomes interlocked with the whale's skin. Barnacles scoop their food from the water with their net-like feet. Here, the shell of a dead barnacle is attached to the remains of whale skin. A whale's body has become exquisitely streamlined through years of evolution.
The mouth of the whale is spacious. It takes up roughly 25% of the length of the whale. passes from the skull area into a very much compressed neck. We have a very interesting forearm, which is the flipper of the whale. With the flipper, the animal is able to control its diving. The visceral area is protected by the ribs, which engirdle it. As we proceed on back, we'll come once again into the area of the hind limbs, which are now no longer used. They're vestigial, hang down, embedded in muscle. The final section of the whale is the propulsive tail, which takes up roughly 25% again of the whale's body.
Although whales are at home underwater, they are descendants of an ancient land animal. 50 million years ago, they moved into the sea. Whales have adapted in some very unique ways. One of the most noticeable is the placement of the nostrils. Through the process of evolution, they have moved from the front to the top of the head. Thus, whales can breathe while barely breaking the surface of the water. These blowholes are now connected directly to the lungs, so breathing doesn't interfere with eating, and the mouth can be full of water without drowning the whale. When they submerge, the blowholes close to prevent water from entering the lungs. The powerful diaphragm forces out 85 to 90% of the air in less than 1 second. The efficiency of the gray whale's respiratory system allows it to submerge for up to 20 minutes. Experienced whale watchers can identify the species of whale by the shape of the spout lingering in the air. Whale spouts have long helped whalers stalk and corner their prey. Although commercial whaling began as early as the 9th century with the Basques in Spain, the earliest accounts of gray whales weren't until 1846. Old captain's logs describe in great detail the hazards faced by sailors and their courage as they pursued the great leviathans. Hand-thrown harpoons were the earliest weapons. They were soon replaced by harpoons fired by guns. During this era, whalebone or the baleen filter from the mouth were in great demand. They became corset stays and combs. The blubber was boiled down into oil, and the meat was left to rot.
We're at the old whaling station in Monterey, California. There were originally 13 shore whaling stations along the California coast. They all have vanished into the waterfront areas, with the exception of this one. The California gray whale was taken principally for its oil. The whalebone in the gray whale was not suitable for the use in corsets. It was a very minor industry, but a very real industry for the Californians. More recently, there was shore whaling off Russia, which ended in 1934. The gray whale has enjoyed protection since 1937.
Richmond was the site of the last onshore whaling station in the United States. Despite the 1937 protective agreement, between 1950 and 1965, a special permit was granted for the scientific study of 300 whales. They were dissected and diagrammed. Now these results provide the only available data on gray whale anatomy. Sliding down these ramps, the whales disappeared into the processing factory. In the 1920s, the Norwegians initiated the use of large floating factory ships called pelagic whalers. These ships could sail far from home and process on board every part of the whale almost as fast as they were caught. In 1937, a German scientist took this black and white footage of the butchering of a blue whale aboard a factory ship near Antarctica. The blue whale, the largest of the baleen whales, over 100 tons of elegance and intelligence, was reduced in less than 1 hour to raw material for more than 50 commercial products. They ranged from bone meal used in fertilizer to oil used in facial cream. It took only a few minutes for the blubber, several feet thick, to be completely stripped off. It was then boiled and transformed into roughly 12,000 gallons of high-grade lubricating oil. This footage, taken the following year after the invention of 16mm color film, shows the brutal efficiency of the whalers. The lower jaw of a baleen whale. Only the bones remain. The factory ship revolutionized the industry and turned international competition for this dwindling resource into a fierce battle. The head of a sperm whale. Just behind the mouth is the case where the spermaceti is located. This, the prize of a sperm whale, was what led to its near extinction. Even though the weather in the Antarctic permits only 2 months of whaling, with this equipment, it was possible to slaughter and process as many as 45,000 whales in one season. Recently, public pressure has been working to preserve this animal, and with the possibility of jojoba bean oil as a substitute for sperm oil, there is now some hope. The factory ship, in combination with the exploding harpoon, invented by a Norwegian in 1868, made Norway the leading whaling country. Over the past 40 years, however, Norway's prominence has receded, and Russia and Japan have taken the lead. With their billion-dollar investments in this cruel industry, both nations are reluctant to curtail any whaling. Here, in 1979, a Soviet catcher boat was filmed hunting in Antarctica, currently the most commercially profitable whaling grounds.
At the moment, the Russians have been granted by the Whaling Commission roughly 200 whales to take for their aborigines in place of bowhead whales. It has been suggested that our government should do the same. I would point out the regulations under which our government operates has put a 10-year moratorium on whaling to end in 2 more years. And the question arises as to where we go from there. Gray whale is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Commerce, which is to say it's a judged, a renewable resource, a resource which you can harvest as long as you don't overexploit it. So, in my humble opinion, I think we really need to develop a new aesthetic which we essentially put a greater value animals and animal life. Think of no better animal to start with than the California gray whale.
Today, the peaceful grays are only threatened by their natural enemies, killer whales, sharks, and disease. Killer whales, a species of toothed whale, while smaller than grays by 30 tons, are aggressive and have been observed attacking grays as well as other whale species. This gray has been attacked by killer whales. There are over 6 bite marks on the flukes alone. Killers have been observed herding mothers and calves into the shallow lagoons for an attack. These scars testify to the encounter and make a comfortable home for barnacles. Killer whales hunting in groups like this are able to prey on animals much larger than themselves, but they single out the weakest for their victims. On 2 occasions, Dr. Walker has observed killer whales chasing grays playfully and then veering off at the last moment. The killer whale's primary nourishment, however, comes from fish and seals. Whales are often found washed up on the beach. Although researchers use these opportunities to investigate possible causes, few definite answers can be found for these occurrences. Perhaps this calf was not born in perfect health, or was separated from its mother by the tide. The lagoons and surrounding mangrove swamps are host to a great variety of sea and shore birds. The brant is a small black-necked goose which travels in large irregular flocks. These birds winter here, feeding on eelgrass in the salt bays and estuaries. However, many birds live here all year round, such as the white ibis and snowy egrets. Like the brant, the gray whales winter here in San Ignacio Lagoon. Between January and March, about 1,000 can be sighted. They come to these warm waters to mate and have their young. The lagoon is teeming with life. The bounty of the seashore supports hundreds of birds, including sandpipers, willets, and terns. Our film crew used this lagoon as its base for over 2 years while filming the behavior of the gray whales. The sand dunes protected us from the strong winds, and the remoteness provided a rare opportunity to observe the whales in an undisturbed natural habitat. After our supply ship left, we were the only people for miles around. Working in a muddy lagoon is difficult, as underwater visibility is limited to only a few yards. The clicking sounds you hear are the pistol shrimp who live on the sandy bottom. The head of a gray whale is about 1/4 of its overall length, and most of this is the long protruding jaw. We filmed the whale underwater in slow motion. Its graceful movements reflect the complete control the animal has over its body. The 10-foot wide flukes drive the whale forward at an average speed of 4 miles per hour. Powerful muscles running nearly 1/2 the length of the body move the horizontal flukes up and down. Each stroke propels the animal forward. This is different from fish. Their vertical tails swing from side to side. The divers are dwarfed by the huge creatures which surround them. Some species of whale navigate with echolocation. That is, the high-frequency sounds they make bounce off objects, telling them their position. But researchers have not yet demonstrated that the low-frequency sounds which gray whales emit operate in the same manner. Although exactly how these great creatures migrate such long distances has yet to be proven, memory and vision are thought to play a significant role. The eyes are located just behind the corners of the mouth, 7 to 8 feet from the tip of the jaw. Each looks out to the side. Without stereoscopic vision, the whale has to turn his entire body to catch a glimpse of the diver's hand. Professor Walker has devised a stereo underwater sound recording instrument, which is used to collect information about whales' sensitivity to sound.
I'm recording the gray whale with a new system of 2 microphones so that we get an illusion of how the whale moves around. Gives a feeling of their speed. This is just in its infancy. Whales underwater are very sensitive to the diver. We're really trying to monitor them 2 ways.
There are not many sound recordings of gray whales. The songs of the humpback whale have captured the attention and imagination of everyone. Gray whale sound research has barely begun, so it's too early to interpret the meanings of the low-frequency sounds or compare them to the sounds of other species. Many species of small fish have a symbiotic relationship with these giants. They constantly swim at their side and feed off their skin parasites. Whales can be mischievous. Dr. Walker has been observing this one for 2 winters. He named her Bumper. Bumper gave our film crew a rough ride and nearly capsized the raft with all our equipment. Whales have such control over their movements, we believed this attention was given to us on purpose, but we were never sure exactly why. Filming the friendlies turned out to be more risky than our film crew anticipated. When frightened, whales, like any animal, may panic, and by moving their powerful flukes, swim away quickly. Cameraman Howard Hall, filming dangerously close to the flukes, suffered 2 broken ribs as a startled whale disappeared into the murky water. During the winter, when whales are in these lagoons, they may feed if plankton or shrimp come their way, but they do most of their feeding the 5 months they summer in the Arctic. There they consume many tons of food daily, so when they migrate and calve in these temperate waters, they are living off their stored energy reserves. Sometimes, however, they have been observed dragging their mouth along the seabed, scooping up whatever they can find. Their flukes then rise above the surface of the shallow water. Old-time whalers believed that when a whale's head emerged from the water, it was to spy hop or to check out the surroundings. Researchers have recently discovered that grays are extremely nearsighted in the air and can usually see much better underwater. Sometimes when their heads are poking out of the water, it's because their flukes are resting on the seabed. The reasons for breaching, that is, jumping completely out of the water, have mystified observers since the first breaching whale was sighted. Even today, people continue to wonder. Some scientists speculate that it is a display of power or exuberance. Others say they do it just for fun. Whales have been observed breaching up to 40 times in succession. Sometimes when the whale thrusts its head above water, it simulates lunge feeding. Lunge feeding is when they crash up through a swarm of fish, letting the water spill out between their filter plates, keeping the fish inside. Our divers swam down to get a closer look at the whale's mouth. The 200 yellow filter plates, called baleen, are in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. They're soft like a smooth brush and are made from keratin, just like human fingernails.
The enormous tongue is elevated against the roof of the mouth, pushing out every bit of water. The plankton will be stopped by the fine fiber of the plate. The tongue will work the food back in this general direction, and it will be put into this tiny opening, which is the throat.
This amazingly small opening is the sole passageway for the tons of food eaten every day. Tiny amphipods and shrimp like these are the baleen whale's primary food source. During the summer, they are found in great abundance in the Arctic. These protein-rich creatures live near the surface of the sea and float passively on the currents. They are often in such dense concentrations that they look like red patches on the water. The filter plates in action, filmed for the first time, are shown here in slow motion. In contrast to eating floating amphipods, when in the lagoons, grays have been seen plowing through the mud, taking in mouthfuls of the sandy bottom. They stir up the mud, making it hard for the cameraman to see. This drawing is an artist's conception of how a whale might look if it were feeding in the lagoon. They suck in mud and sand as well as any available food, discharging the unwanted material through the baleen. Every bit of food is needed to build up sufficient layers of fat to withstand the icy cold of the Arctic Sea. This haul of shrimp will give you a rough idea of the average daily intake of a gray whale during its intensive summer feeding months. Despite the shortness of the Arctic summer and the barrenness of the land, there is a richness of food in the sea which supports hundreds of birds, whales, and other mammals. The summer feeding grounds extend for approximately 2,000 miles. When the gray whales arrive in the Arctic in June, they have been essentially fasting for the previous 8 months. They join many other whale species here, the blue, sperm, minke, and bowhead, as well as finbacks and humpbacks. Thus begins a marathon banquet, which lasts until the ice floes form in early October. One species, humpbacks, like to beat the water with their flippers or with their flukes. Researchers believe they do this to concentrate the fish for more efficient feeding. These old engravings show California grays in the Arctic. Grays are protected today from commercial whalers and can only be hunted by local Eskimos. As autumn approaches and the hours of sunlight decrease, the food supply diminishes. The change of season is subtly marked as chilling breezes from the north blow across the shifting ice. Their blubber replenished, gray whales once again begin their southbound adventure. Their journey is the longest migration undertaken by any mammal, up to 7,000 miles in one direction. Some venture into the Gulf of California, but the majority winter in the lagoons of Scammon, San Ignacio, or Magdalena, 500 miles south of the U.S. border. The annual whale-watching spectacle begins in late December as the females start arriving to give birth in these temperate waters. Some whales engage in courtship and mating during the 4-month trip south, but many wait until they reach the lagoons. These lagoons appear calm at first glance, but the tides create extremely strong currents, particularly dangerous for boats and divers. Here, whales socialize with each other after months of solitary feeding in the Arctic and establish themselves as members of a group. They travel in a continuous parade, sometimes together, sometimes alone. But everyone heads south. The whales pass San Diego in December and January on their way to the remote lagoons. Gray whales are coastal animals, never venturing too far from shore. Along an otherwise barren coastline, the lagoons appear as oases, rich with life. In the marshes and mangrove swamps bordering the lagoons live herons, ducks, geese, and egrets. In the water live all varieties of fish, including groupers and sharks, as well as marine mammals like sea lions and bottlenose dolphins. The shallow water protects the whales from severe weather conditions, and these long, narrow lagoons provide scientists with an ideal laboratory for collecting data on mating, birthing, and nurturing. Radio transmitters have become an important tool for research. A scientist from Oregon State University has developed a transmitter with an antenna which he hopes to attach by a powerful bow and arrow to the body of a swimming whale. It will provide information about whales' nocturnal behavior, as well as data on breathing patterns. Although the arrow hit the mark, the force was not sufficient to properly implant the transmitter. This time they decided to try another approach. They are preparing a projectile with an umbrella-shaped barb to be attached to the layer of blubber behind the blowhole. This is a delicate operation, as they have to lower the transmitter directly onto the back of the animal. The pole is only 10 feet long. Success. Scientists believe the blubber protects the whale from feeling the barbed point. They made the transmitter and antenna small, so it wouldn't increase the whale's water resistance. They hope the transmitter will convey information about the whale's position for at least 1 year. Despite being tagged, this whale didn't seem at all upset. It stayed near the boat and let the scientists feel its baleen. These sunset scenes, shot at normal speed, demonstrate the turbulence of whale activity, especially during courtship and mating. The transmitters were subjected to tremendous stress, and many pieces of valuable equipment were lost. Some transmitters did survive, however, and the signals were monitored from the sea as well as from shore, day and night. The high observatory at the water's edge is the best location for the radio direction finder. In less than a week, however, most of the signals vanished as the whales moved southward. Other observatories down the coast agreed to aid in the monitoring. Whale-watching tourist boats also help in reporting their sightings. The researchers managed to keep track of one whale for 2 years. Dr. Bruce Mate, one of the team from Oregon, traced some of the radio signals and parts of the migration route from the air. Beginning in San Ignacio Lagoon, they passed San Diego, Coos Bay, Newport, and Tillamook, finally through Umiak Pass, their only entrance to the Bering Sea. Although most of the radio signals were lost, the film crew was able to track the whales on their next southbound migration. During their journey, most whales begin the courtship ritual, which often doesn't end until they reach the lagoons. Here, one cow is pursued by 2 bulls. The females who were impregnated last year at this time are now carrying nearly full-term calves, a 12-month gestation period. All the others are available for mating. 2 bulls now flank this cow. Gradually, the cow swims a little slower, signaling her willingness to mate. From time to time, the bull dives, trying to stroke the female genital area. Whales don't form exclusive pairs, and the males cooperate with each other as they work to arouse the female. One whale, pushing from the bottom, tests her readiness for mating. She rolls over. It's still too early. The same three animals. Here the cow is swimming in the same rhythm as her partners. On the right is the second male. Finally, the whales' bodies touch each other almost constantly. As part of the foreplay, both males try to mount the female. But the weight of their bodies pushes her, and she starts to roll away. They have to stop her with their flippers. It looks to human eyes like a tender embrace, as gentle as possible for such giants. The male's flipper reaches toward the female. The female slows down, apparently giving the males the opportunity to stroke her. This indicates she will be soon ready to mate. When she is aroused, she will be upside down, with her flippers extended and her genital area exposed. The males will swim upside down alongside her. This drawing depicts the trio, males on the left and right, female in the middle. Never before has a gray whale mating been filmed underwater. The intensity of the animal's activity makes them oblivious to the divers, and subjects the divers to even greater risks than usual. The poor visibility in the murky water makes it nearly impossible for the cameramen to accurately assess their danger. Our divers are trying to film in the midst of three 80,000-pound animals, each only intent on successful mating. Despite their 40-ton weight, the whales touch each other with great tenderness. The divers can't tell where the flukes will appear next. Only after seeing these pictures themselves did they realize what risks they were taking. The final phase of courtship begins. protective penis slit releases the giant sensitive organ only minutes before the copulation attempt. If it were exposed too soon, irreparable damage might ensue. Her tail high in the air, the female tries to dive away for the last time. In spite of the powerful tidal current in the lagoon and the buoyancy of the whales, the female and male finally have to lie motionless together for a minute or two. Again and again, the males press the female from underneath. The activity intensifies. The act isn't complete until all three whales float belly up alongside each other. Should either whale's penis touch the female's genital slit, male and female will roll 90 degrees toward each other. Here they will lay for a few seconds, until the sperm is released. A whale must have a penis large enough to reach over half the female's body to make contact with her genital slit. A 50-foot whale has an organ 12 feet long, 3 feet thick at the base. Now they will finally roll together to complete the act. After successful mating, the whales go their separate ways. Next year, the female will return to the same lagoon, only on a different mission, to give birth to her calf.
Baby is 2.5 months old and will continue to ever expand and will gradually proceed to fill the entire cavity, have a length of approximately 13 feet, and it will weigh roughly 3,000 pounds. That is the weight of the average automobile. And it has much the same volume.
A 2- or 3-day-old calf. It has already spent a year traveling 12 to 14,000 miles from the lagoon to the Arctic and back inside its mother's womb. Newborn whales swim awkwardly at first because their flippers and flukes have been folded inside the uterus and are soft and malleable. The mother must support her infant with her own flippers and let the baby ride on her back for the first few days. Once the infant's flukes and flippers harden, he can swim as well as his mom. Mothers now rely on their stored energy reserves to provide enough milk for their baby for the next 8 months. Although this mother appears to be sleeping, researchers believe they maintain a constant awareness of their surroundings, a must to protect themselves and their babies from predators. Whales seem to have a highly developed sense of maternal responsibility. They are always conscious of the whereabouts of their young, even when catnapping. Calves stay close to their mothers for the first several months, but they immediately adapt to the sea. Even a 3-week-old calf has already accumulated his share of barnacles. They stay in the protective isolation of the lagoon until the baby is 2 or 3 months old. The little whale nudges his mother. Finally, he inspects our boat. The slightest noise from the crew will be a warning to the mother, and they'll both disappear. Despite years of whale watching, much research remains to be done. The more we study, the more we realize how much we can learn from these great creatures.
The gray whale is out of danger. It's protected supposedly by international whaling agreement. Our government has put a 10-year moratorium on whaling. In spite of that, the Russians are taking 200 gray whales just for their Eskimo aborigines. I would somehow like to say that in the scheme of man, we joined forces with the whales. The whales are really providing much more income for man as a living resource rather than as a dead resource. 3 times the great whales have been put in a state of near extinction. Why do we have to continue to have this specter in front of this magnificent animal?
The material on this video cassette is protected by copyright. It is for private use only, and any other use, including copying, reproducing, or performance in public, in whole or in part, is prohibited by law.